of 4. And today we're going to do what I've just discovered are the outreach departments. Yeah, outreach department. Good. Elevate. We've got a place for agency funding in the schedule. I'm going to wrap up. So, who's up first? Urban development. Good morning, Ms. Price. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mr. Busby?
Good.
We are on page 121. I'll give you all a second to flip to it. Good morning.
You don't have to do the chalkboard. You don't even know what chalkboard is.
No chalkboard.
We had chalkboards.
Not
All
chalkboard.
right. So urban development is a group of 40 between 4 divisions. We've got 4 within our administration and special projects division. Building and inspections has about 20. Codes and development services has 10. That's that new division that y'all funded last year as a priority to make sure that the quality of life code enforcement items were taken care of. And then planning has 7 within it. Of course, we are level funded for this upcoming year, though our outside services, we did request an increase of $27,000 for grass cutting. We had a bid process that we went through last year, or earlier this year, and the lowest bid came in 4 times what our current bid is. And so anticipating the worst and knowing that we will have to reopen that bid this year, we needed to request additional funding so that we can cut the tall grass on properties that just don't
And
do
Ms.
it.
Price,
We need
y'all
to
only
get
do
$50 more
grass
thousand for
cutting
that.
Private property, yes, sir.
on ones that have been, that hadn't done it themselves.
Yes,
sir.
It's separate from Sylvan.
100%. But that's what I've got this morning. That's where we are, level funded. Except for
All right.
that.
Hey, where is the outside services you were talking about? Where is that?
Outside services is falling within codes and development services. So that is on page
See it now.
Okay.
125.
123,
See it.
but on 123, it shows no recommendation for service.
That's admin. If you'll go to page 125, that's the codes and development services page. And you'll see line 3100 outside services at 34,960.
And how did y'all pull off a 23 actual from 1,700?
That is an old number. That is not where we are today. We just, by the time the budget book got published, that was where our number was. We're running right around 6,600 for grass cutting.
All right.
I know I call every week 5 times, so let's double that 27.
And again, actually,
I'll see you in Rachel.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the main driver of your whole thing is staff, right?
Yes, sir.
Raise
There's
staff.
there's nothing else, no other increases except for the COLA and that extra money in outside services.
The code enforcement is going to be done. I think it made a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. For sure.
I think you can kind of see a big difference in deploying more assets into that.
Oh, no doubt.
It's been very welcome across the city.
I appreciate that, and I know the staff does as well.
Yeah, we do, definitely.
And so last year was the consolidation up under your umbrella of several of the peripheral participants in code enforcement and that's, so recap for us, who do we bring in under you as part of that?
Absolutely. So TPD had 2 code enforcement officers, environmental services had 1, and we had 2 within the planning division. We separated out and created a new codes and development services division that has a director, Will Smith, a manager of codes and development services, Jarvis Dickinson. We have 2 senior code enforcement officers, Wesley Snyder and Lester Walker, and then 6 code enforcement officers now. And so y'all funded, where we had 5 before, you funded an additional 5 positions
And that was reflected in last year's.
in last year's budget, yes, sir.
At the macro level, Ms. Trites, is there anything you want us to be aware of, either in terms of potential improvements or problems that are going on?
No, sir, just that building and inspections, you know, we've got a lot of really tenured, amazing folks within that division that I think are starting to look at going to the House. And so we'll see some more retirements in that group in the upcoming year, and we'll just continue to go from there.
And are you coordinating with Human Resources on preparing for that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Talk a little bit about your staff and like openings, and vacancies, and kind of where are you on filling?
Absolutely.
Needs?
So admin and policy has 1 vacancy technically, but our new individual, our special projects coordinator, actually will start with us next Monday. Planning has 1 opening and a neighborhood resources coordinator. Interviews were Friday last week, and I believe they made a selection for that position, so that could open up another position within planning.
What does that position basically do?
The neighborhood resources coordinator, that was the position that was created to really serve as that liaison between our neighborhood groups and the city staff. They serve as the primary liaison to the zoning board of adjustment, which is very community centric. And so that position is a senior level, very decision oriented position. And then building and inspections, we have 4 vacancies within that group right now. And we're working to fill those. We have a building inspector position. Interviews for that and a property maintenance inspector will happen next week. The deputy director position has not yet been posted, though hopefully that will happen shortly. And then we have a building plans examiner position we've been trying to fill for a little bit of time now. It's just a weird market. That's the technical way of putting it. It's just a weird market. And especially in that field, there's not a lot of folks who are in the field who want to come and work inside City Hall right now. They're not quite done working in the field, but we're starting to see that change.
Do you mind talking a little bit about, ZBA? There've been a lot of frustrations from my standpoint on certain things, and I know we had a leadership change. I know that we also changed some things that allowed some different things to be part of decisions, if I remember correctly, that you could consider certain things. Where in your opinion are we with ZBA right now, and a lot of the issues that were there that we're trying to work through? Because I have an opinion I'll be glad to share in a second.
I think from a zoning board of adjustment perspective, we're in a better position than we were. And of course, you as the council helped set them up for success when it came to short-term rentals and decision-making for short-term rentals. I think there is still room for improvement and just remembering. And no staff has not been lazy in training. I will say that much. We have made sure.
No staff has not been lazy.
Listen,
Staff hasn't lazy.
staff has not been. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to phrase that one.
That was good.
But staff has not
Yeah.
been lazy in getting them trained on the new stuff, and it's really just a function of leading a horse to water and hoping that horse will drink. And hoping
Or you get another horse.
that would be a council decision.
Oh, of course. I'm just throwing
I
out-
vote for the.
Since we're talking about ideas, just throwing out an idea.
Listen, I just came back from the farm, so I'm in a very horse-oriented place.
Yeah.
So you could have brought us a horse.
I could have brought you a horse.
Well, I think the frustration sometimes from a citizen's perspective, and I'm thinking of a particular issue that happened in my district, that I predicted that when people figured that out, they'd go nuts, and they have gone nuts. But I hate to say I couldn't really do anything about it other than complain, say you shouldn't do this, call multiple ones, and then it still doesn't seem to. I think the reasonableness part of some of this has been an issue. So, I mean, I think that we need to look long and hard about who's on that board, and I appreciate y'all continuing to train and to talk through, you know, kind of how people should look at it, because that is a very difficult job, just like planning and zoning is a very difficult job. They have a lot of hard things to look at, and I think with the short-term rental stuff, we tried to make it a little easier on them.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's worked a little bit better, it seems to me, because I'm getting less complaints about it. I don't know about my friends, other friends on council, but I think that was a good first step. But I think the mindset is still kind of an issue with that, and even though we appoint people to that board, I sometimes don't feel like they're open to a councilman calling them and talking about stuff. And that's my opinion. And I could back up with some more facts, but I do think I appreciate what y'all done, because I'm glad to hear you say you feel like we're in a better place, because I think we're in a better place because of you and our staff. Because I think y'all really laserly focused on trying to change part of that mentality there, and I think that's important. But, didn't mean to put you on a bad spot.
No, not at all.
I would if I can, Chair. So I do feel like we're in a better place because, you know, short-term rentals, my first time in office was like scary. You always knew that was gonna be the longest discussion for the day. So like, but for our, you know, people volunteer to be on these boards. So, and I know we do the best practices in the city of Tuscaloosa, but like, do we ever have any like workshops for them or training to give them like a heads up before they see it that night?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so are you talking about like our board members?
Yes.
Having, yes, 100%. The staff sits down, of course, like with the Planning and Zoning Commission, Historic Preservation, and Zoning Board of Adjustment, sits with the chair, vice chair, maybe another member, just to review cases.
Okay.
And then the staff has always had an open door policy for any board or commission member, if they would like, you know, 30 minutes to an hour, however much time they need to review cases together. To talk about them a little bit more in depth. I know the staff has always been very amenable to that.
Yeah, but I think from overall in the community, it seems like people are more open to talk about short-term rentals. Like they understand it a lot more. They know where it's allowed and who can do it and what to expect from when they do it. So I'm happy with the process right now.
Chair, I just want to say, Ash, I just want to thank you and your team, because my district who's in a serious need of a facelift, we got a lot of issues, or had a lot of issues. I think your code enforcement was key. Your department was key in just helping solve a lot of critical problems, from abandoned houses to homes that wasn't in the best conditions, to people trying to start a halfway house in your neighborhood, you know, next door to a daycare center. So I just want to tell your entire staff, Will, and the entire staff from you, just I appreciate all the work. Y'all like 911 to me, because I called, it's an immediate response, and my constituents appreciate it. So I just want to give a huge shout out, because I know y'all got a thread on me, but I appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate that as well, and the council's confidence in our group. Mr. Busby, do you have anything else for me?
I don't have any further questions. I want to echo the thank you. I appreciate what y'all are doing. And if you would, when all of this is over at break, grab me for a few minutes, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yes, sir.
All right, arts and entertainment, Ms. Day.
Chart and an overview of events. Good morning, Council. Arts
Good
and
morning.
entertainment can be found on page 53. So I've just provided you with an overview of the Arts and Entertainment Department for FY23. And before I go into my budget highlights, I would be remiss if I didn't start off by thanking each of you for your support this year. Your support of the Arts and Entertainment Department has helped build a very strong and efficient department, and so I thank you for the support with the resolutions that you passed. I provided you with an org chart. Currently, we have 39 positions, with 6 being vacant. Out of those 39 positions, we have 23 full-time and 16 part-time employees. Compared to the FY twenty-three original budget, overall salaries and benefits increased by $693,705, which was due to the proposed COLA and step increases in the proposed budget. The transfer of 6 employees from environmental services, that's our special event crew that were transferred over during the ITS realignment. 1 employee, we gave an FTE from River Market to Community and Neighborhood Services, and internal promotions throughout the year.
What does that mean? One employee we gave an FTE
Okay,
community service?
so, trying to be efficient over at the River Market, we realized that we had too many full-time employees. We weren't keeping them busy. And so I worked with HR, and LaPerry needed another full-time employee, so we gave our full-time employee to LaPerry so that person could be effective.
Okay.
And in addition, on the budget highlights, it's proposed 1 full-time and 2 part-time park rangers were added to the budget, which were funded by a transfer from Elevate.
And are they on the payroll and working?
No, so that's in the proposed
Oh, in the
budget, so that hasn't.
And it shows up where, Ted?
In the proposed budget,
I know, but is it under, obviously not Gateway, not Amphitheater, not River Market, not Transportation? Others, where,
it is special events, I'm sorry, it's under special events.
other special events, so when that goes up 125% from 254,000 to 572,000, that is what? That's 2 park rangers?
2 part-time park rangers and
Part-time
1
park.
full-time. And
Okay.
so we will hire them based on the actual need of how quickly we can get them hired and how many permits that we're permitting. But right now, we are permitting events in our 8 of our 9 parks. And we don't have anybody to oversee that. If you've paid for a permit for a birthday party on a Sunday morning at Shelby Park, and you get there and somebody else has already started setting up a birthday party before you have, we don't have anybody to go out there and say, I'm sorry, this is a permitted event. So those park rangers will help ensure that our parks are running efficiently, and that if you paid for a permit to have an event, that somebody's out there making sure that you're good to go.
All right, so, I'm thrilled that we're putting park rangers on the payroll, because as we gather parks up under our responsibility, the glaring absence is of an authority figure to oversee those events and not call on an overly strapped already Tuscaloosa Police Department. I'm a little surprised to see them in arts and entertainment instead of construction, facilities, and grounds. What's the logic there?
Well, I believe the logic there is that in special events, that department is who permits the events. So they'll be working very closely with Nicole and Lily on the permitted event. They would know exactly what we have permitted for. They would have that information. They're also going to be out there helping us, if there's any damage left over after the event, things like that they'll be helping us assess as
All right,
well.
what about non-special event park usage? Who's responsible for it?
So this is not for general security of parks. This is for
Well,
the
that's what I'm
operation of
asking her.
special events. So general.
Hang on
sec-
one second, Ms. Stanford, please.
Sure.
What about the non-special usage of the park?
So if we don't permit event, then we're not out there.
So your 1 full-time and 2 part-time aren't devoted any to that?
Correct.
Okay, now, Ms. Stanford, what were you saying?
Public safety would be, so all of the police officers and firefighters would be the ones that were doing general security
So
and
we're using police officers for policing, for
there's no
patrolling parks?
patrolling of general parks as of right now.
That's my point.
Is this just for Elevate Parks or all parks?
It's for the 8 parks that we currently oversee.
Okay.
Which I'm happy.
And so Eric, welcome back, I hope you're feeling better, and to bookmark this for us to talk about, my point is, there is no patrolling of the parks?
Well, we've got crews that go out, check the restrooms, you know, do the landscaping and things like that, but as far as park security, we don't currently have any, other than TPD.
That's a discussion point.
Correct.
How we run parks without security is a problem. And to rely on Tuscaloosa Police Department as the primary source for that, I think is a misuse of a very expensive, highly trained, and short supply asset.
Yes, sir.
All right, Ms. Day, go ahead, please.
So,
Well, before we leave other special events, so that 125% increase, one full-time, two part-time, is there anything else in there that takes that up $317,000
just the proposed COLA increase and the step increase.
in special events? No, I'm looking on page 53, under other special events. The budget proposal is to increase it from 572,000, excuse me, from 254,000 to 532. That's an increase of 125%, or $318,000. What I'm trying to understand is all of that driven by, you informed us there's one full-time and two part-time park rangers
Yes, sir.
that are focused on overseeing special events that you license.
Yes, sir.
Is that the whole $317,000?
Sorry.
Sorry, ask that one more time.
I'm sorry. I know the increase of 44,934 are due to the two part-time rangers.
Okay, I'm looking on page 53.
53.
So that's gonna be a total of all the departments, every single division.
Okay, that was my question. Is that $317,000 only the one full-time and two part-time, or is that other things? It sounds like the answer is
It's the entire division.
other things.
Well, no, it's the salaries and everything else within that division.
Within which division?
The special events.
Special events?
Yes, sir.
And how many, Kate, did you say, how many employees you have in there? You hit it in your intro, you talked about it.
I can tell you specifically.
Put me in ballpark.
We have 4
Four.
in special events, and with the proposed 3. We have, we have Nicole is our manager, community relations manager, and Lily does permits, so that's 3. And then the proposed full-time park ranger, and then the proposed 2 assistant park rangers.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so excluding salaries and benefits, the total budget is level funded with a few exceptions. So there was, like we just discussed, the increase of the 44,934 in wages due to the addition of the 2 park ranger positions, which was offset by a transfer from Elevate operations and maintenance. And then we had,
Which is offset transfer from Elevate operations and maintenance.
yes, sir. And then we had a decrease in $30,000, which was transferred to the strategic communications for special event marketing. So we decreased our budget by $30,000 and gave that to strategic communications. Are there any other specific questions?
Carl?
Yes.
From there?
Okay, the amphitheater line item went up 34%, it's $357,000. Part of that I know is salaries and step, right? But also there's a huge jump in employee insurance.
Well, because we took on the 6 additional employees
Okay.
that were over at
It
ESD.
got transferred.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's 6 plus the anticipation of hiring a few more, right? A few more people for the year.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Okay, under special events, talk to me a little bit about what types of things y'all do license as special events and what types you do not. And so what's behind the question is, there was an incident in my district this past week or so where a commercial event was licensed on city right-of-way, which I suppose is under y'all's purview.
Right.
The problem was, from my standpoint, as the councilman, that event was licensed in front of one of our oldest line permanent brick and mortar retailers.
Yes, sir.
And there's more to the story, I know,
Yes, sir.
and I wanna hear it,
Yes,
but
sir.
for now, let's start, please. Just paint for me what event, because when I saw that, I thought, that's not art, and that's not entertainment, that's commerce.
Right.
What defines where y'all go with special event permitting and where you do not?
So on the streets, anything, a road race, a parade, homecoming parades, things like that, were city parking spaces that we permitted in front of that business, which I'm happy to speak with you about later, but they were aware of it and did sign off on the permit.
Again, I know there's more to the story, that's what I'd like you and I to talk about.
Okay, yes, sir,
Separate.
I'm sorry. So,
But in big pictures,
big picture, it's made, a lot of the parks where people wanna have weddings outside in the park, they wanna have birthday parties, they wanna have, family reunions, things like that. We make sure that they have a weather plan. Most people, when they're thinking about a birthday party, aren't thinking of things like that. That's one of the things that we ask them. They have to know they can't go out and stake in the parks. There's just different rules and regulations, and we make sure that the area is safe. As far as the way that it looks, it's landscaped, it looks nice, everything's working before they get there, is what we do. Right now, Lily, who oversees our permits, she literally is going out to the parks prior to an event, making sure the restrooms, we work closely with facilities maintenance and Eric's group to make sure that things are up and running before somebody's paid for a permit and they go out there and they actually get what they deserve.
and what kind of revenue is generated by this?
It's usually, with our parks, it's typically, $100 per hour with a 4-hour minimum, and everyone is required to pay a $25 permit fee.
And if it's a commercial event, how do we coordinate that portion of it that is licensed and authorized by you, and that portion of it, I would assume there needs to be some sort of business license and tax reporting,
Yes, sir.
paying, who
So
is that
we work
coordinated
with, that's part of the permitting process, is there's a whole checklist of things that, the permitting department, the special event department goes over with who's requesting the permit. Also, I'm very proud of the fact every 2 weeks, we have a meeting that has about 15 of the city departments in that meeting. And it's everything from TPD to EMS to facilities maintenance, landscaping. We go over every special event that's coming up in the city, including the permitted events. And so everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows what's important, what's coming up. The River Market's having an event, it better look great, the grass is cut, everything that's going on. But more importantly, through the permitting process, when we get a permit, Ms. Haley sends that out to all of the different departments. And TPD signs off on it, EMS signs off on it. Every one of those departments says, we don't have a problem with this. TDOT's like, hey, got that covered, we'll drop off the barricades. So it's a huge coordination within, it takes a village to do this. And it's a huge coordination with all the different departments. So we make sure everybody's on the same page, no surprises.
I would suggest that the district council person be added to that no surprise list.
Oh, I love that.
Not from an approval standpoint, but from an awareness standpoint. Ms. Standridge, how is so on a commercial event licensed through special events, in this case where a tractor trailer truck come down, are they getting a business license?
It depends on what it is.
If it's a tractor trailer selling shoes,
Yes, they do.
they get a business
Yes,
license?
they do.
And then what's the reporting procedure so that y'all ensure that you've been apprised of their sales and collected.
The same as with any other business. So
That
they will,
is-
they will file, whenever they file their business license, they will have an estimated amount that they plan to receive in their revenue. They'll pay their business license fee based on that. And then whatever, sales they have, they'll report on their sales tax form. Any enforcement side is done through our regular audit procedure. I can tell you that, I'm not gonna go into audit theory and enforcement theory. That's probably
Well,
not.
we don't need to go that deep, but the
Appropriate
reason
for
I
this
ask
venue.
about it, as opposed to the same as any other business, they're only in town for 2 days, right?
Mhm.
So how do what, do they come in and provide an estimate to get their business license, and then before they leave or after they're gone, they report, okay, this is how much sales we did?
No, again, just like with any other business, they will come in to get their initial business license. They will make an estimate of what they plan to receive during their event. They'll get a, special event business license, based off of their estimate. And then when they report back in, it's based on their sales tax form. So if they are grossly over what their estimate was for their business license, that won't be received until the next time they come around. Business licenses are annual, are an event specific, so like if they are,
So,
True it up in
but
arrears, though.
all
Does-
business licenses
does
are
that
paid in
pres-
arrears.
Does that
Right.
presume that they're coming around on a recurring basis?
So,
Now, do you follow what I'm saying, Ms. Standridge? If they're coming in town for 2 days from New York, they come down, they have a sale, they leave. The truing up in arrears, I understand, but for a one-trick pony, is that effective? Does that work?
I can tell you that most businesses don't operate that way. And if we were to go back to review those types of events,
I'm
This-
aware that most businesses don't operate that way. What I'm asking is, in this case, where somebody comes in from out of state for 2 days, is that procedure effective?
for that one specific business, if you would like to audit it, no, that procedure is not appropriate.
Okay,
But it is what we have the staffing to be able to do.
all right. Any other questions for Ms. Day? Yeah, go
I
ahead,
have a
Mr. Kraft.
question, and this probably goes to the standards. I'll bet you know this.
I'm not sure.
One of your line items too is the savings center. It's in there.
Yes.
Are we being reimbursed anything from Elevate for these savings center costs? And if not currently, will we be in the future, or is this gonna be a general fund requirement to support?
For the salaries, for the individuals that are employed. So currently, no, we're not the general fund is not reimbursed by Elevate, even though we are both sides. So the general fund is not reimbursed by Elevate for salaries as of right now. Into the future, when the Savings Center is up and running and those positions stay as Savings Center specific employees, we can update on that transfer back and forth.
At that point, it probably should be in the savings center budget as part of the facility.
The operations
The
and
whole area,
maintenance of that
correct.
facility, right.
When we reviewed all this stuff, Carly, in Elevate, when we went over all of these budgets, which I know we're gonna do that again, but did those budgets assume future, when we were looking at trying to, how much money we were gonna lose or break even or whatever, did those budgets that we were presented and taught assume that these costs were going over there, or were we still calculating this was staying in our?
Sure. So if you'll recall, back when we were talking about the Savings Center, and how those, projected pro forma budgets would kind of fall out, there was one question on whether or not we would have like a management company. And whether or not that management company would kind of be its own entity, or whether the city would kind of take over the aspect of a management company for the Savings
Or
Center.
we would pay someone, or the group would pay someone to manage
Right.
this, right?
So that question is kind of still up in the air, and I think that the pro formas that have been presented to you were on both sides, that there was a management company portion of what the Savings Center would cost. Currently in our 10-year plan, we do show an amount that we will transfer to the Savings Center for their loss amount. So if the management company sits with the Savings Center, then the city will fund that portion as a transfer to the Savings Center. That's in our 10-year plan. Obviously, that's 4
Because
years
we're-
down the road.
Well, because we're not hiring the people, right, paying the people.
Right.
We're paying them the manager,
Well,
potentially.
we could go either which way. I think we're planning for the city to pay that. Whether or not it sits over there or it sits with us, we have the funding at least kind of set aside.
But without remembering the numbers, it's gotta be cheaper to pay someone to manage it than if we can hire a bunch of people with benefits and everything on our side, right? Probably.
You know,
It's more expensive to come through.
I think it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other, honestly.
Yeah.
Typically, you pay more to contract it out, you save, because you don't own them. You don't own them for life.
It's a lot of-
Retirement plans, all
Yeah,
that.
that's what I'm saying, it's a lot of money when you fully cost somebody.
When you,
know.
if you own them,
But, I mean, that discussion's coming, I understand.
Sure, and but yeah, just to let you know that the general overall thought is that the general fund is not being reimbursed for the Savings Center salaries that you see in Ms. Day's specific line item budget, not right,
At
at
this
this
point,
point,
at this point.
right.
So there's no projections from Elevate to pay that in the future, to pay the salary in the future.
There is in the 10-year plan,
Okay.
but that's whether or not if they continue to sit in the general fund or if they sit over with a management company.
So how many staff do we have now for the Savings Center?
We have 2. So there is, Ms. Buck, who's the Savings Center director, and then they have a special projects coordinator.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, Logan, Ms. Howard, any other questions? Okay, Ms. Day, thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, and rest in peace, Jimmy Buffett.
No question about it.
I take it he's not gonna do the made-up concert?
Apparently, we're not gonna have a concert.
Mine's not gonna be exciting as hers.
You don't know that, you don't know that at all.
Well, I'll provide you with the
Always.
But no, I'm passing out a org chart. It will actually be speaking along the lines of Kay letting me have one of her great employees. In the Office of Community and Neighborhood Services, we have 10 full-time employees and 2 part-time. I provided you that because a lot of times the constituents call for different things and you may not know where to transfer them, so the employees' names are on there. To be more specific instead of having them go all the way around the world.
No, we just like to call you and bug you.
I know. But in regards to budget as compared to last year, there's an increase of 132K. I'm on page 65.
Right.
Again, as compared to last year, there's a overall salary increase in budget by 132,706. Again, that is due to the step raise and the COLA, projected COLA, and also the full-time employee that was transferred from arts and entertainment. And I want to say again, thank you, Kay, because she's been exceptionally great, learning real fast. Another main thing, one of the major things, there's an increase in salary reimbursement, as you can see. For the last several years, there was a reimbursement of $251,500. There was an increase of $25,000 to offset the closeout of several.
So that reimbursement, that's coming from the federal program
Yes.
to the city, reflecting that portion of our staff time devoted to it.
Yes, the staff hours that are worked on the different grants. It's not based off of percentage, but we do have several grants that we'll be closing out before the end of our fiscal year, which is March 31st of next year. Also, as you see with outside services, our outside services is we have to do community assessments before we write any type plan, action plan, consolidated plan that is usually not covered in the grant admin side. Also, out of that, we have foreclosure proceedings on properties that we, I guess, inherited probably when I was in the 6th or 7th grade, but that's not here or there. And we're still dealing with that, trying to get that
You're
squared
not like Jethro Bodine.
No.
Didn't make it with 23.
Yeah, and then we also pay property taxes as well on some of those properties. The other item, the neighborhood revitalization, it was actually taken out because it is now as a proposed community development plan. It's in our this year's action plan as called the Let's Paint and Let's Renovate, and we're waiting to hear from HUD for their approval on that program.
What could come in for that, or what's budgeted?
$326,000.
So Perry, I see under, legal advertising, $800.
That is, we have some.
No biggie there.
Okay.
Are there any other media-related expenditures that take place under the hood of your department?
Sometimes, as I going back to the grant that we inherited years ago, those are actually covered in when we have to legally advertise with it.
So those are legal advertisements,
Correct.
those aren't
Yeah.
partnerships or?
No. Our legal advertising, as you can see, when we're having community development committee meeting, we may have to transfer 3 cents, and it's gonna cost us $300 to transfer that 3 cents, so, but, yeah.
Mr. Lanier, you own them in committee, anything you wanna ask about or?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
give them the money. Yeah, it's wrong.
Sure, absolutely.
But Perry, going back to that neighborhood revitalization, what are, I mean, without being Captain Obvious here, what are some things that would qualify for that? Cause I guess I'm thinking, like,
Roof, vinyl siding, painting, the norm.
what about business revitalization?
That we are working on, that's a projected project for next year.
So are you the person that would handle, I'm sorry.
It would be-
I just,
it would be-
I'm just saying what all would be covered,
This is
Yeah,
only
yes.
home, owner occupied, this is owner home.
kinda like that, the thing that Chip Case was in front of us for,
Yes.
to help.
Through
People
land
with their
program,
homes.
yes. On the business side, we're actually
I do
working on the
think
program.
that would be, on the business side, I think, one of the things that is encouraging to me in some parts of town, but we need more of it, is quality business.
And what we're proposing is called a business facade improvement program. And so that will come for you sometime in the very near future.
So,
Where would that money come from?
CDBG.
How much?
If
But, oh, I
the chairman
understand.
allows one.
I bet-
And if HUD.
I bet the chairman would have a hearing today, right now. But like, how much money are you talking about wanting to put in it?
It depends on the amount that we get. I can't,
What are you gonna ask for? Do you know yet?
probably 500,000.
okay, so is this chairman, of finance, is this our $500,000 for the facade improvement program? Is this the same? No,
No.
This is different.
this is different, so we can get, oh,
That's okay.
okay. I mean, I see dollar signs, I'm just trying to do it.
But you know what, Perry, in my opinion, wherever we can support strong businesses, in whatever part of town it is.
Write this down.
I mean,
Make sure you do.
So he can't object later, right?
Yeah.
I think that if you can get some anchor businesses in a couple of parts of town, and
Mhm.
West End is close to my heart because my business is in West End. I go there every day, I drive by a lot of this stuff. If we could ever figure out a couple of these pieces of property with some good businesses, I think it will attract, it's great for the consumer, right? It's gonna attract more people, it'll attract everything you want, I think positively, which would be neighborhoods, revitalizing, people moving back into the different areas. We just need some more retail and some businesses.
Yeah.
And I mean,
It's
West End,
pricey
for example, all over
right
town, but I mean, everybody's district wants more business, but I think that's, if we can redeploy capital in ways that we're getting benefits from, I think that is a very positive thing. We're not just giving, I don't wanna use the word handout is a wrong word to use. I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm just saying that we're investing money in something that will bring us a return as a city. I think that is something very important to look at. Personally. Sorry for going on that diatribe.
I have a question about
I don't know,
that.
y'all may have some more questions.
Yeah, I got one about the neighborhood revitalization. So with my funding for the Glens, Chip would be over there
Yes.
from the city, okay.
Well, actually, the Glens is a separate project, Martin is over there.
Okay, they got you.
CHIP is over the lead program.
Okay.
And will be the neighborhood revitalization.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Well, you're right, it's a very unexciting
Yeah.
presentation.
Thank you all.
The fun comes
I
up. I know, right? When you come back, that's when all the fun is.
Elevate Tuscaloosa, who's briefing?
This Elevate encompasses multiple operating areas. I'll be covering the overall budget items since the mayor cannot be here today. And then operations is here to give status updates on projects as needed.
Again, all of this is in the final section under Elevate.
Yes, sir. We have already gone over the revenue section, but we can do that again if you would like.
Please.
Okay. So on that first page, on page 197, you will see the revenue structure, which is made up of sales and use taxes. The intergovernmental amount is going to be the grants section. The other financing sources is going to be the debt proceeds that we've taken on. And then cost reimbursements that you'll see for 2023 and then proposed for 2024 is the capital campaign for the Saban Center.
So, okay, so that 23, that was $3 million.
Yes, sir.
In 24, that's proposed to go down to $2 million. So
So,
it's dropping $1 million or about a third.
it's
What's
not,
behind that drop?
so when the capital campaign crew is going out and soliciting, donations, a lot of the donations will be long-term pledges. And so you'll get a pledge that's going to be a large sum that will be paid out over like possibly a 10-year period, up to a 10-year period. Some of those donations will be large in scale and they will be one-time automatic out the door for the donor's cash for their tax purposes. And so the first year of the capital campaign was 2023, so you'll see a lot of that, first automatic influx in that $3 million. And then you'll see some of that in 2024 that's planned, but most of what's in 2024 planned is that second year payout of those 5 or 10 year pledges.
Okay, bear with me this moment. You're welcome, Coach. So if it's in the revenue section, with cost reimbursements, if I see $3 million in 23, that's us getting $3 million, right? With revenue. Okay, and then we're getting $2 million in 24. And that is a drop after the initial hump of contributions that came quickly. That's a drop and then leveling out over a 5 to 10 year period. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth on it. I'm just trying to make sure I can repeat it back accurately.
Sure. So some of them are going to be a 10-year pledge. Some of them will be a 5-year pledge. So some of them will be a 2-year pledge. Every single one of them is going to be different. And so what we do is we will get a report out of the Saban Center Foundation, the SC Foundation, is the group that manages the capital campaign. The city does not handle the capital campaign at all. We just will take receipts from the SC Foundation through their capital campaign activities. So when the SC Foundation,
we take receipts, so the SC Foundation gets a corporation to go, we're gonna kick in $2 million.
sure, that's going to be paid out over a 10-year period.
Over a 10-year period, so $200,000 a year. When you say receipts, like in receiving money or a receipt for, you got this,
And then receiving money.
receiving money, okay. Go ahead.
So, our, general working agreement with the SC Foundation is that whatever they receive in those pledges, the actual cash inflow, they will then transfer to us every year. And so, their reporting that they give to us is they give us basically a 10-year projected plan of their pledges. The $3 million for 2023 and the $1.9 million for 2024 is what their projected payout for those pledges is going to be for those 2 years. They actually should hit the 3.4 million in 2023 plus a little bit. And so again, they're still projected for that 1.9 million for 2024.
Okay, so as those pledges are accumulating and building up real money, that's going into an account for SC Foundation, check, and that's a separate 501c3.
It is, yes.
And then you, the mayor, and the city attorney are on that board,
We
right?
are, yes.
And there are other non-city related on the board, and it's that board that is apprised of and directs the utilization of that money.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right, I think I'm caught up with you on revenue.
Okay. So we wanna flip the page then, if on page
What's
19.
that, Mr., can we go down through the big piece first, just below that?
Sure, so the net revenues,
Right,
okay, so, we will, the way that
so the
Elevate.
23.5 million, that's our plain vanilla taxes and use tax. Well, there's 3
Sure.
for use tax, so that's 23.5 plus 3 is 26.5. There's 26.5 million a year coming in off of just plain vanilla taxes and use fees, right?
Correct.
Okay, the other 2.1, what is that other?
So it will be
I mean, I would have guessed it was gonna be the cost reimbursements, but those numbers are different.
it's going to be the, 1997 from the cost reimbursement,
Okay,
Sales tax penalties and interest.
So- penalties and interest from sales tax.
okay,
Let's see. So if you can really,
That should be everything.
yes, okay, so general sales tax is going to be 23.5 million. There are 2 rebates that are assigned. One for Legacy Park of 235,000, one for the, Mega C-Store in Alberta of 26,000. Those come off of sales tax. Your use tax is gonna be, these are, I'm just reading from page 201, which is the detail of revenue.
okay, well, but join me on 197 for just a second, because I wanna make sure that I understand the big chunks before we go down into the components. So, on page 197, down in the bottom portion of 24 net revenue, again, there's 23.5 million sales tax, nearly 3 million in use tax. There's some other, which is 2.1, and it looks like
That's
the
going to-
cost reimbursements are about 2 of that.
Mhm.
and
And then
so-
sales tax penalties and interest is 110,000.
Okay, so there we are at a little over 28.5 million, all right? That's the initial gross amount for Elevate to work with. And then we're taking out a couple of still remaining incentives that have been paid, Legacy Park, Alberta Convenience Store. And then we come down to the environmental service fee transfer. That is the garbage rebate, and it's calibrated at 5 million flat.
Mhm.
So now we're down to 23,349
Of
to
what-
really use for 24.
Well, that's what we call our net revenues, and then,
Okay, all right.
the way that Elevate is structured, that net revenues, is what is used to calculate the 15% set aside for operations and maintenance.
Okay.
And then the 20% set aside for public safety. So the 20% for public safety and the 15% for operations and maintenance is calculated based off of that 23.349.
Okay, so there's 35%, so 15 for O and M, which we all applaud. 20% is for public safety. Are there any other typical general fund type usage out of that net amount?
No, sir, those are the two,
There's no storm drainage, there's no, okay.
just those two.
All right, now, where you wanna go? 198?
Sure, if you flip the page, there were, upon Elevate's passage, there were, kind of promises of what the Elevate funds would be used for. The general categories for that are kind of listed on, in some form or fashion on page 198. You'll have education initiatives that are considered to be operating because they are annual appropriations every year for education operations. And then there are capital categories. So connectivity being one of them, cultural arts and tourism, parks and recreation. And those are kind of listed in the two tables that you see on page 198. These are gonna be where the majority of the expenditures from Elevate are made. Obviously, individual projects that council members might be interested in are kind of bucketed in those style of initiatives. The education initiatives that we consider operating will contain pre-K, summer learning, things of that nature. Connectivity will be items such as, get to it, University Boulevard, the Western Riverwalk, the airport grant matches, and then Skyland Boulevard streetscaping. Those are gonna be in the connectivity section.
Okay, would you rather, so we're gonna have some questions about each of these as we go down.
Sure.
And I assume those are primarily operations questions.
If they're about the project specifically, then
All right,
yes.
then keep moving through and let's understand that we'll then come back
Sure.
and get the operations people up.
We'll go through what's kind of like in the buckets and then we can kind of go through. So then in cultural arts and tourism, that's where the Saban Center is going to sit. That's the major section, obviously, of that one. Also within that bucket is going to be, the Gateway, reimagining, which I know that Ms. Day came and spoke to the projects committee about, assigning a contract not that long ago. And the civil rights trail is also within the cultural arts and tourism bucket. The next bucket is going to be parks and recreation. In that, the large ones we have are going to be, Snow Hinton Park. There is, the Lake Harris and Nickel Trails is in that one. Bowers Park is in that one. Carlton Park is also there. Sokol, just the general parks, the parks that you have seen come through. I can keep on going through those buckets, but Restart is going to be an old,
Restart we did just pre-COVID or the beginning of COVID?
it was when we were trying to turn the corner from COVID. That was, if you'll recall, the business investment plan through the chamber. We did some experience, event creation expenditures, those kinds of.
But there's nothing in 24 programmed.
No, sir. The only reason that continues to stay on there is because we do show some life budget investments from Elevate, but no, so there's nothing in 24 for Restart. The same thing for professional services. A lot of the professional services that you see in that section will be for, the general planning, overall planning costs for Elevate. There was a TTL contract in there, for just like overall maintenance and management from the beginning, but there's nothing in there for 2024.
Okay. And the contingency.
Yes, sir. So that's going to, if you recall from the
You got
mayor's.
a set percentage?
No, it's not. It's if you remember the, mayor's big 10-year projection spreadsheet, that's just that rollover amount that goes from year to year and the accumulation of that.
So that's a residual amount, not like O and M, a preset proportion of what's in the bond.
Correct. So depending on how the budgets for the projects move and change, throughout the years, that contingency amount will move and change as well.
Okay.
But that's really going to be the total, I guess, overview of Elevate. If you have specific questions about the line items, we can go into those.
I do not. Do Mr. Crowe, any of the other council members? Okay. I do not, so does that mean it's time for operation to come up and let's talk about some of the individual programs in there?
Like, we gotta vote on the addition.
Well,
Y'all feel free to ask away on any questions on project specifics. Either myself or Ms. Jackson should be able to get you timeline, budget, status update.
all right, let's start like this, Ms. Moore. So, Ms. Standard just went over with us the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the handful or half dozen or so big buckets that all Elevate expenditures and investments should be located in, check?
Yes.
Within those buckets, would you start with what you see as the most important and impactful programs within those budgets? So, obviously, District 4, I'm gonna wanna know about University Boulevard corridor, okay? Are there others of that magnitude that you wanna address as an intro into it?
I guess, Counselor, my question would be is that for us, they all have merit and probably they're gonna be, so are you thinking more of a large dollar
I'm
amount?
talking
or
about big figures,
big figures? Okay,
or challenges implemented.
gotcha.
So I would think University Boulevard corridor may meet both of those parameters.
And we'll have a proposal coming from Duncan Coker for Projects Committee to review on budget that's kind of looking at in sections and phases to give the council a little more flexibility from a budgeting standpoint. That should be on Councilor Crow's agenda probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. You also have the Alberta section, which I know Councilor Tyner's been heavily involved with Mr. Gurney and Mr. Gardner on updates on that. That's a little bit of mixture of federal MPO and Elevate funds for the Alberta corridor section. Those are 2 large projects. Engineering as well, which we're meeting on to discuss the Greensboro streetscape, and then also for you, Mr. Lanier, the Skyland Boulevard streetscape, and to get those from a budget standpoint, 2 projects committee for review from a contract standpoint. We're meeting with engineering about, I think, sometime early next week on that.
And the Skyland Boulevard is like $500,000,
Yes, sir.
and the Greensboro Avenue portion is
$500,000.
$500,000.
I would say from initial phases for those, if you want project specifics on Colton, on timeline, as Ms. Standridge noted, Gateway and Linton's Barbershop, which are those kind of in the planning process. Those are items that this body's approved and are in process now. Tennis Center hit a little snag with LWCF, but we're back on track on that project as well.
LWC.
Land Water Conservation Funds just in the review process. Handful of our parks, whether we manage them or Para, Snow Hinton would be one, Bowers would be one, Queen City Park potentially on portions of would be part of it. There's certain restrictions that any kind of modifications we make to those parks, even just from a simple standpoint, has to be reviewed by ADECA, which administers the LWCF program for National Park Service. It's just an extra layer of bureaucracy. That's a simple way to put it.
And Queen City Park is administered out of Elevate.
We're looking at some improvements to that particular area. We haven't necessarily gotten a budget yet, but one of the things we've identified working with Ms. Day is that there's some need for additional parking and some optimization that maybe we can do in the immediate area and cleaning it up close to the riverfront, and some potential uses that we could look at that hopefully we'll get to share with this body in the near future.
Okay. Go ahead.
As far as projects, you want to keep going? Okay. The stat line for the education, you touched on those. I would say for a small dollar amount, those have a huge impact, both for all 4 programs. We're getting our numbers in as far as spring and then summer, as far as number of levels of participation, which we'll be happy to get you a copy of that.
So what's the nearly doubling of that amount? If I,
Which amount?
the education initiative, going from $1 million to close to $2 million in 24.
So revised budget for 23 is 1.9, and then the mayor's recommendation for 2024 is 1.9.
Okay, I'm looking on 198 up the top, it says education initiatives, 2023 budget, 1,050,654. 2024 proposed budget, 1,954,961. That's an increase of 904,000 or 86%. What I'm asking is, what changed between 23 and 24 to nearly double that?
It's the Athletic Excellence Fund. If you'll
The
recall,
Athletic Excellence Fund?
yes, if you'll
So that's
recall,
$500,000, right?
2023, the original budget was passed without that included, and it was passed later on, I think in October.
So that was, Ms. Sanchez, so that was not in the original 23 budget, but it shows up in the revised 23.
Yes, sir. That's the total, like on page 204, we'll show the details of that.
Go ahead.
Just as a couple of quick highlights, I know Councilor Neer and Councilor Fail is not here. The Bowers Park project, which will be a large one, that's under planning right now. I think it should be complete around, let's say, holiday time this year. It's $1 million budgeted for design for that to go into full implementation in 24. Harris Nickel Water Trails, that master plan is wrapping up. Think of that a lot like the Riverwalk. That's just going to be a plan that can be followed over the next 20-year period for minor improvements. The restroom is underway right now, as are the docks at Rock Quarry Landing. I know Councilor Crowe and I have discussed that at some point we probably need to sit down and talk about Phelps, have an engagement discussion on that, figure out the best way forward. That'll be something we'll definitely need to look at from a large project standpoint. Currently discussing Maccabee, which is of great interest to Mr. Tyner and Mr. Fail with Focus. Para is on board looking at a way to maybe reimagine that particular facility and save some dollars while also having some community impact. So working with a couple different parties on that, keeping Mr. Fail and Mr. Tyner up to speed on that one. Not necessarily a huge budgetary impact on that, maybe more facility discussion. Western Riverwalk is nearing completion in early 24. You will have that third section of the grant, bill grant, which is going to be the moorings component. So you'll see that line item there budgeted. That would be the final closeout for the bill grant. Trying to scan through this really quick. Skilled trades got moved. Paul Park, obviously, that's going to be going to construction fairly soon. Any other specific? We can get hammered into the exact deadlines if you want.
Educate me right quick on the University Boulevard corridor. This says, $4 million is funded out of the 24 Elevate funds, plus $9 million out of our 2022 debt issuance. So that's $13 million in 24, right?
I'm following.
Where is that going? How much is going down to Alberta? How much is going to the western end along the university? And what's on the drawing board for it?
So for Alberta, the long-term final plan for funding is for there to be a total of $10 million in city money.
Right, and then we're augmenting that with another 5 out of state highway, is it?
It's actually another 10 million out
Another
of,
10?
yes, that's coming from
Is
the,
that a change?
no, sir,
Okay, so it's 20 million going down to Alberta.
roughly, yes. And then on the,
And Katie Beth, of this 13 that's shown right here, how much of that 13 is going down there?
to Alberta,
In 24, down there, to the kingdom of Alberta down there.
currently it's budgeted in one project account. There are not two separate accounts, one for Alberta and one for the campus area.
Okay,
But I think in our minds, right now, we're treating the funding as split 50-50 for the
50
two
is
sections.
the fall.
Yes.
So that would be roughly 6.5
roughly. They're on different timelines and have different needs as far as how we're spending that money currently at this point in time. But when the dust settles, the funding will be roughly 50-50 between the two,
So
excluding the MPO part.
in FY '24, we all anticipate writing checks out for the western corridor?
As Brendan said, we will be bringing the first professional services contract to you guys within the next 2 or 3 weeks for the western part.
Okay.
That will establish phasing and timing of actual construction
Okay.
projects. We will
So
also,
in projects, we'll see the professional services come shortly.
a
right?
first phase of professional
First
services,
phase
a
of it.
relatively
And that's
small,
for the eastern, the Alberta portion.
that's the western,
Western
the
portion.
downtown campus portion,
Okay,
yes.
And think about for that section, Counselor, that'll also be time for you to talk with Duncan Coker as well about from a district expectation. The formula we're looking at right now is to kind of look at it in sections, so that way from a funding standpoint, we can work in better synchronicity with the UA side, so more what I'll call the Queen City downtown side, to kind of look at best practices to fund it without kind of tripping up ourselves and maybe making an improvement, coming back and ripping it back up. So Duncan Coker's gonna look at some different ways to kind of section that out to maximize budget, but also timing and sequence. So that'll be something you'll get some input on here, hopefully after that contract gets approved.
okay, and then what about the eastern portion?
The eastern portion, we have contracted with TTL to handle professional services. We will have an additional contract to help us with our right-of-way acquisitions on that part of the project. We will have some other miscellaneous expenditures related to utility conversions. But by and large, we've already contracted with TTL for the bulk of those professional services.
Okay, and flipping back just a second, Brandon. So, when they come for the initial phase, the initial increment of professional services on the western portion, the downtown university portion, do they come with a vision of what will be done, or is that purely to look at and analyze what should be done?
I would say the latter.
The latter.
I think that one is there's some general idea that we need to address lighting, sidewalks. There's some certain fundamental
I
elements
get
that
that.
won't change, but I'd say it's actually the latter is what does
But
that.
this is to get them and us from a general idea to
A final vision.
some pictures of what it might look like if we do this here and that there and this here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the other part too is that will inform, there's a discussion, which I think it's a good one to have, is that as we move to that next stage, what level of design do we go to from an engineering standpoint? So that way we can get a better idea of cost estimates for each of those sections. So that'll be something we'll look at in that process. So that way we don't say, let's do X to Y on this streetscape and it comes back at 40%. Let's try to get a little bit better understanding from a design standpoint. So that way we can get a little bit tighter on our budget. But that would be after this portion. That's something to put kind of in your calculus as we move forward as well, which I think is a safer way to budget for the project.
Okay, Mr. Crowe, any of the other council members,
Yes,
any
I have-
questions on specific projects under Elevate, this is the time.
Yeah, so you mentioned the Greensboro Avenue project and then the facade improvement program. Where does that fall?
Perry.
It doesn't fall anywhere you.
Not right now? Okay. So, okay, got you. So now I understand what
Facade
you're saying.
improvement side, yes.
Yes, yeah, okay. Cause you mentioned the amount that we was thinking about. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. So then the Greensboro Avenue streetscape, what is that? Where does that fall? It's under Elevate?
Yes, that is professional services to get started on that project.
Okay,
It covers
okay.
Greensboro from University back to 7th Street, so a couple blocks in there. Just to make streetscaping improvements similar to the other sections of downtown that we've done.
Okay, I like that. From Greensboro back to 7th Street.
On Greensboro from University Boulevard to 7th Street,
Okay, got you.
yeah.
Why 7th, not 6th?
I actually don't
I asked because
know.
the natural break would seem to be 6, because south of Sixth, you've now got county courthouse, Big Baptist Church, but between Sixth and University, roughly the same, although 7 to 6 needs serious improvement.
That's something we can look at. We haven't gotten, we're meeting with, OCE in the next week to kind of get that
I would
tightened up.
not preset it at 7. Obviously, money will be a factor. but
Sure.
No.
We'll look
Again,
at
the
that.
natural break is at 6.
Sixth Street, okay.
And then it'll be similar approach for, OC's, for Skyline Boulevard as well, which I know Mr. Lanier stepped out, and we're discussing that with him and keeping him posted, similar type design and contract that will come to projects.
I do wanna clarify, so Seventh is further south than Sixth, so it's actually more scope than Sixth.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
it's
I'm
including
I
six,
got
that's what I
backwards
was
in my
thinking
mind.
too,
We
yeah.
should go to,
I just wanna make sure,
I think we're thinking the same
We're
quarter.
We
going
are
further,
the 7th is
yeah.
the natural break.
yes,
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify,
so
sorry.
from Seventh all the way back, yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Thank
wanted
you.
Six to be included, right?
I was going along with you, like.
They got it
everyone
right,
says.
I believe. You're going down to
Yes.
the old, to the Donald Washington Museum.
Correct,
Huh?
yes,
Which is your natural break you're talking
Perfect.
about.
Okay.
yes.
Any other questions?
The 500,000 that is put in there for the next expansion of the Northern Riverwalk, it's moving forward with a plan, right?
We have, yes, sir, we have, your committee will see in the near future, the Skyline Boulevard, the Greensboro, and we're meeting with OCE to discuss, it's kind of all 3 projects are in one meeting for Northern Riverwalk, where you'll have a group come to you to continue that along. So, the good news is from the last project, we've got a pretty good idea, of what's really gonna be needed in scope already, so that'll be helpful. Yes, sir.
Brendan, okay, the timing wise of the Phelps Center reimagination that I know is in the long-term elevated budget. I would hope this is something that we can kind of work toward coming up with a plan next year or something. I mean, what y'all's, cause I mean, we want community input, of course, and figure out, you know, what could be done with that wonderful piece of property.
I think there's, if you'd like to have maybe an initial discussion, our team has done a tremendous amount of due diligence. 1, on the amount the center loses, and just to be honest, in conjunction with Para. 2, any restrictions, if any, in the area. From an LWCF, there are some portions as you get close to kind of the dock area, they're a little bit more restricted to where you come back to the property proper or not. The other thing too, which Councilor Busby and I, we participated with the tourism group, strategic planning. I think there needs to be a discussion of kind of that gateway to the lakes. I know tourism and kind of TTS, they're big on that, and that's something Kelsey and I have discussed and kind of a reoccurring theme. So I think there's some really nice opportunities at that location, probably to maximize usage from really the whole community, really for District 3. Also kind of activate those lakes a little bit more just as that gateway approach, particularly with McWright's Ferry Road coming. So that's something that we could maybe sit down and have let's see everything we've done and see the best way to kind of engage moving forward, I think would be the best approach. A lot of opportunity there.
No, I totally agree with you on that.
A lot of opportunity.
Other thing that I know, Katie Beth, we talked about that y'all were looking into is I think it would, you know, when you're looking at, and I'm driving down North Ridge Road and you've got the Pettis Randall walkway that's there, and if you go all the way down to Rice Valley and you go all the way down to Watermelon and you come all the way back up to New Watermelon or that Old Colony, you know, that whole area right there is exactly 5 miles. And there are a lot of areas in front of the golf. A lot of that's already sidewalked. A lot of it already has walking paths. But in my opinion, as y'all been looking at this, I think for me, where we could get the county and Northport, we're willing to help if there's some little pieces of land that's there. But most of that is the city of Tuscaloosa. But I would love to see us have a total walking trail that I believe would be, of course, used by my district. I bet it would be the most used outdoor walking path in the city of Tuscaloosa because you already have more than half of it done. If you could just come up Watermelon Road, that whole loop would be 5 miles. And I think that's something I really would like to see, as y'all look for grant money or other things, Katie Beth, we talked about a lot of stuff with a lot of these things happening. I think that's a project I would really like to try to push, because I know we've looked at that, we've done a lot of work at Sokol. I still would like to see some pickleball courts too, just in the district, just of some description. I know we're having lots of discussions about that.
We missed that
Repositioning, but it's,
pickleball years ago.
but it's, I don't know, those are just some things I'd like to try to see.
Maybe
Let's move forward with
Should
that.
have
it would be
pickleball
helpful, maybe we
years
can
ago.
sit down, look at the, kind of walking trail loop,
And don't say
Um,
pound table.
He sure did.
Phelps,
Somebody
and then kind of just have those, and then anything that kind of breaks off from there, we can just have a discussion and kind of a path forward.
I would just love to have a good idea about this is some things we're gonna do going forward, that you could say, okay, here's what the next 3 or 4 years look like in the district. If we can do that sometime soon. Because I know there's money allocated, Mr. Chairman, for some of these things, long term. What we're not spending in Alberta, though.
I
mean,
know,
that's-
be careful
You know, I'm
Yeah.
hoping that we're
Be
gonna
careful.
have some crumbs in District 3, Mr. Tyner, President Tyner.
Here, I got some crumbs.
That's good.
Um,
Thank you.
Brendan, I just forwarded you an email
Sir.
that I got over the long weekend, but I wanna ask if you know off the top of your head. I got a note about a wooden footbridge along Jack Warner Parkway
Walton, yeah, Walton.
by the library and River Road apartments. I'm not,
We're addressing that, Counselor.
where is it? I'm not sure which one they're talking
It
about.
connects
Up the hill from
between
Library.
the,
Built by Para.
Up the hill,
Up the
so
hill from the
on the
library.
Queen City Trail coming down the hill?
No, it runs
It's a-
parallel to Jack Warner.
Yes, it's
On
about,
the south side of Jack Warner?
about the bridge.
yes, sir, about 20 feet off the road between those condos and
Okay,
the
all
library.
right, well, I'll get with you.
It was built by Para several,
Yeah,
15
oh,
years or so.
Okay, I wasn't even sure which one they were referring to.
There's pretty good
Yeah,
tree
and they
cover
threw
right
the
there.
city under the bus with that email.
Okay.
I haven't seen the email, sorry.
All right,
I just-
well,
I
all right.
working through the
Okay,
challenge.
I'll get with you
having
after,
somebody go
between
through that.
meetings here.
I thought it was going.
Scott and I were on.
I just
that.
wanted to know what
That's a
they're
fair
talking
place
about.
to do that.
It is.
Okay, are there any
That was
other,
kinda confusing.
any other questions from either finance or council members in general on Elevate before we shut that one down and take a break? Okay,
As we close, Katie Beth, as we've discussed, we're gonna bring you updates for each one of your projects as they kind of get going. One of the things we found a lot of success with Mr. Tyner is he has, I think it's every 3 weeks roughly with engineering, particularly is a great opportunity to go over the Alberta corridor update since it's a little bit further ahead. I would see the same thing for the University Boulevard, Colton Park, Northern Riverwalk, any of these projects where we figure out the best way to work with you for touch points to keep you informed. So I know it's been really, really great for Mr. Tyner on his end, so.
okay, thank you. Let's take a 15-minute break and we'll reconvene at 10 after 10, all right? Okay, let's resume post-break. Is there anything else from the questions of or comments to the sections that are presented this morning? We have a section on here for agency hearing, for agency funding. We've essentially addressed those through the big 4 or 5 that we've heard in Finance Committee, plus I think the 9 separate agencies that various council members have requested present to us in separate sessions. We've done that. So I do not have anything to add there or ask there, any Finance Committee or any of the other council members.
As I told you during our little break, there's 2 agencies that I'm now trying to find money for. Is Sister Cities, who voluntarily, if I'm correct, during COVID, they're the first one to voluntarily take a cut without being asked to. And then this is their biggest year coming up for travel, and we know the cost of airline planes have gone way, way up. And so I would like to see them restore the funding that they used to have pre-COVID. And the other is T-SNP. It's very little, it's not a lot. But they got to the point last year where they were paying out of their own pockets. And, I would like to see them restored. I mean, to fulfill their request, which is just a few $1,000s.
All right.
That's all I have.
So here's what I'd like to do, because when you get 42 different agencies and
Yep.
7 different council members, the permutations become endless. Obviously, we're all talking with each other individually to try to get support, but at a committee level, if any of the council members have changes to the agency proposal that's on the table, that's fine. If you will get them to me before next week's committee hearing,
Yeah, I can do that.
which ones, how much, and this is the important part, where it should come from. Because what we have to remember is the recommendation that comes to us is balanced. So if somebody's going to get more, then somebody's going to get less. And we just need to each individually bear that in mind. Again, as we discussed last week, that does not apply to our water and sewer projects, which are not legislated to be a balanced budget.
Well,
But the general fund
yeah,
is.
I understand, but one of those, all my years down here, the agency funding recommendations have never stayed. That's right.
It's always the most contentious section and one of the smallest amounts involved. So again, I recognize the legitimacy of that, but if you will get it to me in writing before next week's finance committee,
We'll do it.
and just what, how much, and where you propose it come from. All right, Ms. Sanders, is there anything that the staff or A&F has on agency funding?
One item on agency funding, is that the Kristen Emerson Youth Foundation, I know that some of you council members have spoken about this, this agency specifically. I will say that in the mayor's recommendation, there is a 0 amount for that line item, because when we accumulated all of the applications, we did not receive one for that specific agency. Now, in some conversations with the lead in that agency, I think that there was maybe an email miscommunication at some point, and they did submit an application, we just didn't receive it. There was just some odd possible technology issues. So I do want to tell the council members that they did submit an application. If we wanted to do a level funded budget amount, they were awarded $6,200 last year. They do have they did resubmit an application that we did receive. They were requesting $24,000. We will get that to council members for you to review. And if you wanted to add that possibly, as a line.
I think that fits with the guidance to the council members, is
Sure.
if the staff or the mayor wants to amend his recommended amount, that's fine. Just get it to us by Tuesday and where it would come from.
And- And I would appreciate that, because I think I had to solve for their agency that it was decreased, correct?
It's at zero now,
Right,
because
it
we had
says
not
zero.
received an application.
Okay.
And so since we received it after the close of the application window, then that's why I'm just alerting council now. If you wanted to change it from what was published, then that's.
I do,
And I'll,
I would like to see that.
I'll-
Well, will you get with them, because really that should have been on the mayor's recommendation, right?
Okay,
I'm not gonna say either which way, I will just say that because it was received after the fact,
Yeah.
by staff, I'll get that to you if you want to make that recommendation.
Would you two
I do,
coordinate that and
yes,
just
absolutely.
get it to finance committee in writing
okay, gotcha.
before our meeting next Tuesday, and we'll be
Okay.
glad to consider it.
Okay,
That's
gotcha.
the
Okay,
one-
Ms.
that's the one
Sanders,
item on agency.
Is there anything in terms of wrap up from this week?
I do have one item, the packet that was delivered to council members, if you'll recall, the property insurance discussion with Mr. Manasco.
Right.
In litigation and insurance committee last week, our property insurance will be increasing. What you have in front of you is a, historical look at what our insurance has been for this line item. We typically bust our budget on it every year. And so the total amount that we're budgeting for in 2024 currently is $1.2 million. A 10% increase would be, about $120,000. A 20% increase would be about $240,000. We are recommending the full 20% to
For
be
budget purposes?
Yes, sir, to be as conservative as possible. And then also just to take into consideration that it usually goes over and above our budgeted amount anyway. And so this would come out of that $887,000 that we recognized in additional revenue possibilities last week. And so we would propose to put the $237,781 as a consideration factor for budget amendment.
Absolutely, and my understanding from Mr. Manasco's presentation is the start point for increase is 20%, and that's going to be experience adjusted, right?
Yes, sir.
What this, down here at the bottom of this top page,
Mhm.
given the 5-year average increase of 6% and current year increase of 10%, is that of our insurance premiums?
Yes, sir, that's the.
What, did he not say we haven't increased premiums since 1997? Did I imagine that?
They haven't increased the rate that Amic charges per, but our premiums go up
Oh, I thought
because
that
of
was
additional
that
property and other things.
Okay, so the premiums have gone up.
Yes, sir, because their
On an
rates are
annual
applied to larger exposures.
Okay, all right, I got you.
Because we have added property over the years. and
Okay.
so, yeah.
All right.
Rated, which would be charged.
Okay, got you.
So we will add, we'll add that in then on our tracking and Ms. Howard, I will get you the application for Kristen Emerson so that you can make your recommendation.
Okay. Any other questions, comments before we adjourn for the morning? Folks, thank y'all for coming in. Staff, thanks for the presentations. There's still chicken biscuits over there if you want them. We are adjourned.